to everyone, to colleagues from the Caribbean and also colleagues from partners organization. It is a real pleasure to be here today to share a few remarks on behalf of the Regional UNEP office. My name is Francesco Gaetani. I'm the science coordinator for the Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean. This event has been organized along with the European Space Agency, CARICOM, and the government of Panama in the framework of the REIN activities. The REIN is our Regional Environmental Information Network, which serves as a scientific advisory board of the Forum of Ministers of Environment of Latin America and the Caribbean. The topic of today's session, I think, is very relevant to everybody here in this meeting. The establishment of this hub, this Copernicus hub, is very timely, and it's essentially a very useful tool that can be considered for all your activities related to reporting, monitoring, and also to use data and information for policy and decision making. The initial focus of this initiative, the hub, is on disaster risk reduction. Of course, this is a very important theme, a very important area for the Caribbean, because of the climate risk and the impact on the Caribbean region. The use of satellite data can support early warning system, vulnerability assessment, post-event evaluations, but also something that we have been discussing over the last month with the European Space Agencies and other partners. Remote sensing data, Earth observation, can be a critical information, a critical data for the assessment of loss and damages. And this topic is particularly relevant and important for the Caribbean. And as UNEP, as United Nations Environment Programme, we hope we will be able to work with Copernicus Hub here in Panama City and to see how this initial focus on disaster risk reduction can be extended to the environmental broad area, which includes other topics that are very much related to disaster risk, like land use, land cover change, the monitoring of marine and coastal ecosystems, and as I said before, the possibility to assess the economic value of ecosystem services, which is an important input and data for the loss and damages chapter within the Paris Agreement. Let me say that the availability and the accessibility to data is not, enough or is only part of the equation. As UNEP, as United Nations, but as I know that CARICOM as well is very much active on this front, we know that creating institutional capacity and technical capacity for the use of this data is possibly the very first and very most important action that should be and could be considered when Earth observation and remote sensing is going to be part of the data, the official data of a country. So you will hear from Copernicus Hub, from Claudia, from Nicolas. They will present themselves in a couple of minutes. That the Copernicus Hub is already conducting a number of capacity and training activities. UNEP is very much interested and very much committed to support these activities and also to provide countries with any kind of themes, topic, or areas where this kind of capacity might be needed. Very good. So let me conclude my very brief intervention by acknowledging again the European Space Agency for its technical leadership, CARICOM for its regional coordination efforts, and of course the government of Panama, which is the hosting country of the Copernicus Hub, for supporting the initial development and implementation of this activity. We look forward to continued work and continued collaboration with these partners and with the member countries of the Caribbean area. And we hope that this session, along with other sessions and other events we are going to plan in the framework of the REIN, we hope that this will be a very practical, useful, and concrete contribution to your work. With that, I give the floor to CARICOM, to Amrika Singh, to introduce the topic of today and to say a few words on behalf of CARICOM.
Thank you, Francesco. Let me start my remarks by acknowledging the representatives of CARICOM member states who are online, representatives of our regional institutions and associate institutions, our partners, of course, UNEP office, Latin America and Caribbean office, as well as the office in Jamaica, representatives of the Regional CLAC Copernicus Center, representatives of the government of Panama, if they are with us, and good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the Secretariat, let me warmly welcome you to this afternoon's information session and to thank you for accepting the invitation to participate. This initiative, of course, is being undertaken as part of UNEP's ongoing support for the Forum of Ministers of Environment for Latin America and the Caribbean, where CARICOM member states play an active role. And of course, the CARICOM Secretariat supports our member states wherever they require us to be in their role in the Forum of Ministers. This initiative also reinforces our long-standing collaboration between UNEP's offices in Latin America and the Caribbean with the CARICOM Secretariat to advance joint priorities and programs that advance environmental sustainability and enhance decision-making on environmental sustainability in the Caribbean community. The Secretariat is very appreciative of the outreach by UNEP to help showcase the CopernicusLAC Panama initiative, its mission, scope, and the resources that will be available to members, to the region. And it is expected that the session will highlight upcoming services and present opportunities for capacity building for the region. And it goes without saying that there is keen interest in our region in this particular initiative, given the importance of data and informatics and systematic observations, as already highlighted by Francesco, to our continued ability to monitor and predict the potential impacts of climate change and to help plan our responses to the more frequent and stronger systems that are expected in our region every year. I should acknowledge that there is existing collaboration already ongoing. Our Caribbean Meteorology organization indicated that they were involved in a consultation with the Copernicus Panama Center on the establishment of a severe weather forecasting program in Central America. And our Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology, based in Barbados, has already engaged with Copernicus LAC initiative through an urban flood pilot project, which they're doing in partnership with our Disaster and Emergency Management Agency and EU Commission and the European Space Agency, as well as the SEMA Foundation in Italy. In the same vein, the CIMH, in conjunction with the EU and the LAC Center and others, will be hosting a workshop at the CIMH in mid-May for national and regional stakeholders. So, I want to acknowledge that there has already been outreach in the region, and we're hoping that with this afternoon session that this is continued and scaled up. It must be stated that we hope we're at an exciting stage, and we hope we're at a beginning stage. And we have to acknowledge that there has to be synergies with ongoing structures and initiatives. So we have to acknowledge that there is an existing WMO framework for weather, climate, and water within the region, and a history of international cooperation for more than 150 years. Our national meteorological and hydrological services of WMO members collaborate across the world in real time with data exchange for observation, forecast, and warning to support better decisions. In this vein, WMO and ICAO are closely involved in regulation of air navigation safety, while WMO and IMO collaborate on safety of lives at sea, with specified regional areas of responsibility for daily operations. So, it is key that we mention what are the existing structures that have to be acknowledged. I also wish to mention the EU Global Gateway and Euroclima, and some of our focal points are on this call for Euroclima. And we expect that there will be synergies for the activities that will be undertaken in the region via the mechanisms set up for the Global Gateway. And we're hoping that we could hear some thoughts on this afternoon. So I will not take much longer. What I would like to do is to invite the guests. If you have not already done so, if you can put your country or your agency next to your name. So our partners, UNEP and the Copernicus Center, can see where you're from and who they're speaking to. Let me thank the member states and the regional institutions for coming out in your large numbers. And last but not least, to thank again the government of Panama, UNEP, and Copernicus Center, LAC Center, for your partnership with this region. It is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amrika. And I think we can start now the session. And I give the floor to the moderator of the session, Santiago Bremes, my colleague here at the UNEP Office for LAC.
Thanks a lot, Francesco. I will just share my screen for a brief presentation, an introductory presentation, of course. First of all, I just wanted to thank once again Amrika and CARICOM for the support in organizing this session. We are very glad to see the interest and participation we have in this meeting from colleagues from other UN agencies, from CARICOM representatives and other Caribbean institutions. It is proof of the importance of involving regional institutions like CARICOM in these type of sessions, and we are very glad to have this support for this specific instance. So this session is being organized within the framework of the Regional Environmental Information Network, or REIN, network of the Forum of Ministers of Latin America and the Caribbean that works on supporting technical capacity building and strengthening the science policy interface within the region. For this capacity building effort, we have created a Caribbean working group, which has or aims to support and provide tailored activities for priority Caribbean topics. And this session will be focused on the presentation of the CopernicusLAC Panama Center, as like Francesco mentioned, that is so important for the Caribbean, given the vulnerability to this type of risk. So today's session will have two presentations. The first one being the overview of the Regional CopernicusLAC Panama Center and the services that will be provided for the Caribbean. And Nicolas Ayala, who is the program officer for the CopernicusLAC Center, will be in charge of this presentation. And afterwards, we'll have a presentation on engagement opportunities for countries, which will be in charge of Claudia Herrera, Stakeholder Liaison Officer from CopernicusLAC. And of course, at the end of the session, we'll open the floor for a discussion, questions and answers. So once again, thank you, to everybody who is participating in this session. A special thanks to Amrika and of course to Claudia and Nicolas for participating and presenting in this session. So with that, I give the floor to Claudia to start the presentation section of the session. Please go ahead, Claudia.
Thank you very much. Nicolas will start with the presentation. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Nicolas. Nicolas, can you hear us?
You're muted.
Frozen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can hear it.
And can you see my screen? Perfect. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank our kind hosts for having us here today. At the CopernicusLAC Center in Panama, we are very much engaged and very much committed to supporting the region as much as we can with the great capabilities that the Copernicus tool itself has for all of the region. So I'd just like to reiterate the thanks to our hosts and also all of our participants, all the member states. Thank you very much for being here today. And with that, I'll get started since we have quite a bit of content to show you. So to begin with, I'd like to just give you a general idea of what Copernicus actually is. Copernicus has three distinct, let's say, systems within it, and two very important characteristics. The first and key characteristic of Copernicus is that its data is free and open. At this point in time, you can go into the Copernicus database and take data from the satellites, from space, and use it for your opportunities for your work right now. And this data is also open, mostly, except for some very specific cases, such as the security service, which requires more permissions due to obvious reasons, of course. And I'd like to, especially considering the current international climate and the current international environment, I'd like to emphasize that this will remain the same. It is an absolute strategic priority for the European Union and for the European Space Agency that we keep having this resource as something that is open and useful for everyone. Now, getting on to the more technical side of things, Copernicus is made up of three systems. The first one is the Sentinel satellites, which is a constellation of satellites in orbit right now, giving us data directly. The second one is our in situ component. So we have a network of in situ sensors all around the world, giving us data on different important variables. And the third one is the Copernicus services, which you can see on the right side of the screen right now. So as you can see, there's quite a range of topics. For us, particularly, the emergency service is very much key and something that we bring up to our stakeholders all the time. More on that later if we have time. But essentially what you have here is two sources of raw data, so the satellites and the in situ sensors, and then 6 sources of insights, which are all of the services, which is already processed data that you can use to gain further knowledge of what is happening on the ground. And it's also worth noting that this is not just data from today or from a week ago or from a month ago. These satellites have been working for years. So there's also possibility for use cases which require quite a bit of historical data. Moving on, I'd like to also emphasize that this is not just a steady capability. This is not a capability that will remain just as it is, but it is evolving all the time. We're bringing new sensors and new satellites into the Copernicus constellation. For example, last year, the European Union and the European Space Agency launched 2 new satellites, Copernicus, Sentinel C1 and Sentinel 2C, both of which are quite important for the region. We can go into that later if we do have the time. And with that, I'd like to get into the activity itself, the initiative. This is an initiative which is driven by DG INPA and ESA. So DG INPA, just to clarify, is the MFA of the European Commission. And within this partnership, 12 million euros are being placed to essentially help with the uptake of this capability in the region. This is part of the Global Gateway Initiative, which, as you know, is a very big infrastructure investment program for the European Union, and it's also part of the EU-LAC Digital Alliance. This initiative has a set of key strategic objectives, which are absolutely important, are absolutely central for us. The first one of those is to facilitate the use of EO-based services for disaster risk reduction. The second one is to build technical and institutional capacities for our stakeholders in the region. The third one is to build and foster better relationships and much more cooperation within the region. And we also have one absolutely key objective for today, which is to support evidence-based policymaking for climate adaptation and sustainable development. All of this, we're doing it in alignment with key frameworks for the region, such as the Sendai framework and the SDGs. Now, moving on to go a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of the operations of the center. We have three main activities happening within the center. The first one is infrastructure support. Infrastructure support is about giving the computing capacity to the region so that it can have preferential access to this data. We're also developing a set of services in our second activity, which are tailor-made for the region. These are services that were not available before and that we're creating right now so that the region can have better access to our observation data, and not just the raw data, but actual insights that you can use in policymaking. And the third part of this is what we're doing right now, stakeholder knowledge. It is about outreach to different partners in the region to be sure that these capabilities are not just created, but are actually applied. And it is also about engaging with at different levels of let's say, the action chain, to be sure that the tools are fit for purpose and are fit for your specific needs. To give you a little bit more on that part, and Claudia will really go into depth here, but I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. This includes capacity building activities. This includes entrepreneurship support and support for private sector development, because the states are absolutely great and are absolutely key to everything that we do, but there's also a need for private sector support in developing new tools and innovating. We also have political engagement, as what we're doing, which is what we're doing right now, including the creation of political dialogues, high-level political dialogues, which aim to really bring this topic to the center stage and showcase the power of Copernicus and the power of a tool which is really just waiting to be used by our stakeholders in the region. And finally, we have done an extensive gap analysis and stakeholder engagement and outreach, so that we're sure that the tools and the activities that we're proposing are fit for purpose and are really what the region needs. Now, I'd like to say a word about the services that we're developing at the moment. These services are being developed in partnership with certain pilot countries. So these are services that are being, let's say, optimized for certain countries. You can see a couple of names here: Colombia, Central America. In the case of hurricane mapping, it is optimized for the Caribbean. However, I would like to emphasize that just because the services are optimized for a specific region or a specific country, it does not mean that they can't be moved around. What we're basically doing is creating a tool which can be moved around from one place to another with a little bit of technical tinkering, and which is going to be open source. So, and also something else worth noting here, not just the tool is going to be open source, but all of the data that the tool uses is going to be open sourced. So really the only cost which implementing one of the services would incur if your region is not the focus region would be the cost of hiring experts and having them implement them for your specific context. With this, I'd like to mention something else, which is also key in terms of services, which is the infrastructure part of the center. A lot of the services require a bit of computational power. And the idea of the infrastructure element of our center is that we may be able to provide that computational power for you as well in running this specific services. So with that, and taking into account that it might be best to leave more time for conversation rather than making this a monologue, perhaps I'll pass it on to Claudia so that she can tell us a little bit more about our strategic activities for the year.
Thank you, Nicolas. And I want to take this opportunity to sincerely thanks CARICOM, UNEPS, and the REIN platform for making this dialogue possible. It has a very impact during our last conversation with the Latin American. We have a very good results, and the impact was really great. So thanks again for this opportunity. It is really a pleasure to be with the representatives of the environmental ministries and technical agencies from across the Caribbean. By the way, I'm Claudia Herrera from the CopernicusLAC Panama Center. And as Nicolas says, we are going to tell more about the initiative that we are offering, about the concrete tools and strategic opportunities to build resilience through the Earth observation data. The CopernicusLAC Panama Center, I want to highlight that is the first of its kind in Latin America and the Caribbean. It was created through the collaboration that has already been explained through the European Space Agency and the European Commission. And our center is positioned as a regional hub to provide access to Earth observation services, but more importantly, to build the capacities needed for institutions to effectively use these services in their decision-making processes. Even though that the focus of our data center is disaster risk management, we are promoting a holistic and a systemic approach, and this is why this connection with the REIN is very imperative and it's very strategically. So in this way, we can cover all the institutions that are related with the process of development, mainly with the global frameworks like Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. So I remember in our first meeting when Francisco and Santiago were highlighting the importance to focus our energies and build capacities, not only technical, but also institutional, at the institutional level, and also to support evidence based on policy development. So I think this kind of approach allowed us to promote that leverage and to avoid the duplication of resources and efforts that also the colleague from CARICOM were highlighting. Our 2025 work plan includes over 20 thematic training models and pilot services implemented across Latin America and the Caribbean. In the Caribbean specifically, we are focusing in 3 priority areas, one for hurricane preparedness, and the other one for burn areas monitoring, and also for economic exposure mapping. These priorities were defined based on consultations and also aligned with the specific vulnerabilities faced by the region. But I want to also clarify that even though that these 3 pilot services are geographically focused on the Caribbean, the other pilot services is also an opportunity to interchange experience learning, and our main interest is that we can take advantage of all the development of the services also for the trainings that we are going to deliver. So let's look closer of the 2 pilot services. The number 1 focus on improving hurricane preparedness using flood extent maps that activate through real-time satellite triggers. This service can inform evacuation planning, connect to CMS charter for global disaster response. The other one, on the other hand, supports long-term resilience by mapping economic exposure, helping governments assess urban vulnerability, prioritize investments, and build more sustainable cities. Next, yes, capacity building is the backbone of this initiative. We offer 14 thematic models that include hands-on training in flood monitoring, wildfire detection, urban resilience, hydrometeorological, geological, and also exposure initiative that has been covered during this 14 thematic areas where we are delivering. We are having trainings in person that has focus on trainers of trainers, focus in each country, but then we open that for online trainings and then to the virtual campus that is also installed in our website. This is also an opportunity to make our sessions offer in both English and Spanish, and our strong collaboration with regional institutions like CIRIMA, CMH, FIAP. We are not just teaching software, we are building an ecosystem of data, tools, and users, as Nicolas mentioned, through that open and data access that is Copernicus and all the system of the satellites offer to the region. Next slide, please. You might be wondering how you can participate. Here is our 2025 schedule. In May, we will hold an in-person training in Barbados, focused on hydrometeorological hazard. This is co-led by CMH and CIRIMA. Through the year, we will have also demos in Guatemala and in Honduras and Colombia for the pilot services. And we are starting with the Dominican Republic, as well as local session in Panama. Parallel basis disaster response, wildfire tracking, exposure mapping, and also I'm highlighting this because, as I said before, even though that we are delivering this specific trainings for the services, we are trying to promote, this know-how to other countries that can deliver the same focus on their development. The Caribbean countries are actively including both virtually and on-site activities. This is based on their needs and institutional engagement. This is also this initiative is deeply aligned with REIN, and for the mandate that to bridge science and policy. This is I think it's a great opportunity, and also is also strategically time to contribute to the ministerial forum. We are really looking forward to be connected with this forum of environmental in October, where we can use our information to demonstrate with data, with science, through the science, to demonstrate the real situation of the vulnerability of the exposure in the territories through this specific opportunity in the forum. We consider this is a unique opportunity to elevate the information that CopernicusLAC, together with the countries, could be a regional enabler for climate resilience and disaster risk reduction. And also our ongoing coordination with REIN and also with the European Union delegation, specifically for the activity in Barbados. We are coordinating with the European Union delegation and also with the EU Caribbean Cooperation Facility powered by FIAP, and for sure with the leadership of CMH and CIRIMA. Further strength our Caribbean presence. The May workshop will be essential to define concrete contributions from the region to be presented. Our desire is all of this information and the development of the services could be presented at the forum, and to take this information to consideration. Next slide, please. We want to encourage, we want to encourage to join our pilots, to shape our services. As Nicolas were mentioned, this is through a consultation process. We deliver some process to gather the gaps, the challenges that the country were facing, identifying the most the threat that they were facing, and we deliver all the services according to this survey that we did at the beginning, and also with the mapping of stakeholders. But for sure, as you know, the more complex scenario, events that has been more recurrent, more unpredictable, and the situation related to the disaster management that we are facing, that demands us to strengthen our coordination and to work more closely, and also that your insights and use our tools to inform, to include in national and regional policies will be very important. Remember that everything we develop is open access, is designated with users, and is meant to be sustainable. And the main important thing is that we want to establish that capacities in the field, in the territories, working together with the entities that are related, not just for disaster risk management, also, as I said, with the environmental, agriculture, all that has to be related to the development in the territory. So it is important to co-create the tools and strategies, mainly that the Caribbean needs for a safer and climate smart future. So thank you very much. We are available for further questions. I will be, this is something that we want to continue this conversation. Here you can find my details. And for sure, after this session, we can follow up with the connection as we did with our last meeting with the Latin America, that we could include them in the trainings, and we were moving forward with that connection. So thank you again for working through REIN and also CARICOM. I know the powerful position and all the advocacy, the great advocacy work that you do, and the lobby during the COP and during the other event in the region. We are also identifying the milestones and trying to have a connection, a thread to get that policy notes that also is considered in our proposal to develop political notes, and also to promote a political dialogue where decision makers can identify the reality. You know that we can't work on the scenarios that we don't know. So this is the main importance of the Copernicus, that allowed us to have a deeper understanding and deeper knowledge about the reality of our territories, and we can move through sustainable changes that could be considered, or that could be included in the policy. So the CARICOM is really key, and it's really important. And I want to also to take this opportunity to ask for a specific area, or where we can work, we can share during the COP in Berlin, in Brazil, where we can suggest about the demonstrates, you know, that all the data, the historical data that Copernicus has, and all the material that was produced related to climate change, related to the increase of the temperature of the sea and also the atmosphere. If we can translate this information into that information that really can move on the awareness, the raising awareness of this important public that will be part of the COP in Brazil. Thank you again, and don't hesitate to reach me out if you want to ask more information and also to continue working together. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Claudia and Nicolas, for the excellent presentations. And just before moving to this discussion Q&A sessions, I would just like to reiterate that it's very important if you can share your details in the chat to have a record, but also to share with you the follow-up of the session, the recording, the minutes, etc., as well as all the material. And especially, you can also share it so Claudia can register it and involve you in their communications as well. So with that, I think we can open the discussion part of the section. If you have any comments, any questions, you can signal it through the chat, you can open your microphone, or you can raise your hand. So if there are any questions, please go ahead. Oh, we see David from Trinidad and Tobago. You have raised your hand. Please go ahead, David.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that insightful presentation. Just a couple little questions. Could we get some these presentations and some further details on how exactly to be involved with the training being offered and access to the satellite imagery? This is very useful information and something that we would be interested in getting access to from Trinidad and Tobago. It would save a lot of cost using satellite imagery to look at fire damage, as you have indicated, flooding, etc., and would engage ground truthing. Just a couple technical questions per se. In the past, we have used like MODIS data that's freely available to do fire mapping as well as fire hotspot detection. So I was wondering if the satellites that you have also has that on real-time availability to do forest fire hotspot detection as well, where the system we have with MODIS is when the satellites do happen, I think they fly over Trinidad vicinity twice or something like that for the day. When it overhead and it detects a hotspot, it sends messages to personal cell phones to indicate that the satellite did detect something they could ground truth. So I don't know if your satellite has that capability as well. The problem we do have encounter is a matter of size. Trinidad and Tobago being a very small island, the satellite imagery resolution has proven to be a challenge in actually doing the burnt area assessment of forest fires and so forth. So I was just wondering what sort of resolution your imagery has and whether it would be capable of going down to being useful in doing fire assessments, flood damage mitigation, so forth, some things that you had presented as being capable of doing. We also have encountered problems because Trinidad sits south of the Caribbean into tropical convergence zone. We have a lot of cloud cover coming across from the South American continent and tends to obscure the two islands sometimes totally, especially in the wet season, and the satellite imagery is kind of penetrate the cloud cover, and it sometimes proves to be less useful during those periods of time in the year. So just wanted to know how cloud cover is handled by your imagery and your capability as a satellite. That's my questions for now. Thank you very much.
Perhaps I can take this one. Thank you very much, David, for the questions. All of them very relevant. In terms of how to engage, as we show you, really have quite a wide range of initiatives. So I'll say that perhaps the best way to do it is perhaps reach out to us via email and tell us what's most interesting to you. That's for the presentation. Of course, we're happy to share it with all of you. getting a little bit more into the technical part of things. So in terms of resolution, it depends of the Sentinel satellite. There are different satellites that we have available. So for example, with Sentinel-2, which is an optical satellite, the resolution goes to 10 meters. So we're not talking about very, very high resolution satellites, but what we do have is quite a wide range of bands that we can use. So normally with high resolution satellites, you only have visible light, but with Copernicus, you can also have access to things like infrared light, which are quite interesting in terms of land use and also in terms of dealing with cloud cover or dealing with smoke in when it comes to fires. As regarding fire alarms or fire alarms rather, we don't have that specifically because that is already an application. So that goes beyond, let's say, the part of raw data that we have talked about, then the service, and then the application, which is something else. It is certainly something that can be worked on with our data. However, the latency might not be exactly what you're looking for, because depending on the satellite, latency can go up to 5 days more or less. So I would say that in terms of fire, it's more interesting for disaster risk reduction or for after fire assessment, after disaster assessment. Regarding cloud cover for the whole region is a big problem, but with Copernicus we do have the capability of dealing with this to an extent, given, as I told you all before, the in situ data sensors that we have, the in situ sensors, and also because we have radar satellites, radar-based. So the satellites use a type of sensor called a single aperture radar, which essentially sends waves down to Earth. These waves bounce, they go through the clouds, and we can get them back. So you can't do absolutely everything that you do with optical radars, with optical satellites with this radar satellites, but sometimes you can do even more. Sometimes you can do a little bit less. And if you combine both, you tend to have quite an interesting picture of what's happening. In whichever is your area of interest. I don't know, David, if that answers everything, or if you'd like me to go into more depth in any of those.
No, yes, it did. Thank you for those clarifications, and certainly, I will have to talk internally with some technical experts, like in Forestry Division and the ministry responsible for disaster preparedness, and get back to you as indicated via email on exactly what we're looking for assistance from, and to see if the capabilities of your organization and satellite imagery that you have available could meet those specifications. But thank you very much for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David and Nicolas, for the response. We see a couple of raised hands, and now we give the floor to Edgar Egg from Belize for his question. Go ahead, Edgar.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Gaitani, nice to see you and the team again. Mrs. Singh, thank you for the introduction, and the Copernicus team, thank you for the presentation. It was a very interesting topic for us. As UNEP already knows, data is one of the major issues that we face, access to it, and Belize is no exception to it, right? And so we are very much interested in seeing what products or what benefits we could get out of this. There's very much interest from our country to participate on the pilot projects. I was going to ask about the same things that has the previous intervention. They had asked about the resolution, but I think that has been addressed. I was wondering also whether the image, the satellite, those allow us to process and do mapping of coral reef health. You know that there's the disease that is going around that's impacting the coral reef. And so if that has the capability of doing that type of assessment, I think that would be great for us, since we would want to start to map that. In terms of the wildfire detection, I was just wondering whether it's we are looking at hotspots as it was previously mentioned, or are this opportunity offers us to map exactly the areas of impacts, because that on 2 years ago or last year, can't recall right now which year it was. There was a huge fire that impacted the region, including Belize, and actually it took us quite some time. I don't know if we managed to map everything, but it would have been very useful if this tool was available for us to determine the area that was impacted by wildfires. Um, the government was very interested in doing that and doing the assessment, not only the looking at the area, but also the environmental impacts that those cause within our country. No, in terms of flood mapping, I think it's very important for us, since we are on the hurricane belt, for us to start to do. I am not sure if we have updated our flooding map, the flood-prone areas, but I think it's going to be very important if we could do that, and also the impacts of whenever there is a hurricane or climate uh, activity that happens that would cause flooding, and which areas get flooded and um, have impact on our society. That I think would be very good for us to be able to look at. And so at this point in time, this is more or less the thinking that I'm having. But we definitely will be in contact with you guys to see where we could partner, where we could work together to address the many data issues that we face. Not only us, but I think it's very important that we look at environmental issues from a regional perspective as well, not only on our national perspective, but you know that many of these environmental issues span beyond our national territories. And so having that opportunity, I think it's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edgar, for all of those points. And I would just like to maybe emphasize that your last message, and that is absolutely true. All of this impacts, I mean, disasters know no borders. We have to work together in order to really move forward and try to make the best of what we have. Now, moving back to a bit of the more technical questions in terms of coral. So for coral, we're not focusing on coral mapping for this initiative in particular, but there's certainly a lot of Earth observation potential on it. You can use Copernicus, you can use other tools. A tool which I would very much recommend, which I was working with in a different project, is the Coral Allen Atlas, which is an absolutely terrific tool. You can Google it and find it. It's a worldwide tool. It's free, and it just requires a registration. So I would definitely encourage you to have a look at that if you haven't already. In terms of floods, we actually have quite a bit of use cases focusing on that. So we will have a flood prediction use case that is region-wide. So that's still being worked on, but we're bringing that in. And I know that the first rule of storytelling is show, don't tell. So I thought that for forest fires, I would show a little bit of the work that we have already been doing in Brazil specifically. So this is our webpage. You can come here anytime. It was also in the presentation. And here's an image taken with Copernicus data of forest fires in the in Brazil, in the Maranhão region. So as you can see quite a lot here, and you'll notice that the plumes of smoke don't seem as strong as they should probably do. That is not by accident. That is certain treatment that we have been doing already for the image. So here you can see, for example, active fires, burnt scars, and you can see also other geographical features such as untouched areas, rivers, etc., etc. So that's definitely something that can be done with Copernicus, and that is something that's being worked on for some of the use cases.
I think we're having some technical issues with Nicolas, or is it only us? Can somebody confirm if they can hear Nicolas?
No, I think he's frozen,
I
Francesco.
think it's frozen, yes.
You can go ahead with
can-
the other question.
I can hear Nicolas. I don't know, but I want to complement something regarding to the Belize questions. We activate the EMS for the recent fires we activate Copernicus. So if you consider that there is some information that are still not clear, or you are not taking advantage of this material that has been produced by our expert in Europe, we can establish a connection with them, and our main interest is that information turns into decisions. So, for example, in Guatemala, we asked for a follow-up visit so they can take advantage of this production of the materials through the activation of the Copernicus satellite during that specific moment that it was tailor-fit through the EMS. And also to confirm that for the flood monitoring services, you are included together with Guyana and Jamaica and Belize. They are the three countries that are focused on these services. So I will be very delighted to continue with our conversation. And also, you are invited to attend the training in Barbados in the week of 19. So if you are going to attend, or someone from your institution, will be really good. We have been struggling at the beginning to have some connections with NEMO, and we invited for the activity in Guatemala, but there has been some issues that was not possible to have a Belize. But for sure, we are very interested to have this conversation and to identify what are your gaps, your challenges, and how we can be given the support that you are requesting or needing. Thank you.
If you allow me just a little bit to on that issue, I think there is a communication aspect, perhaps nationally, because NEMO falls under a different ministry, and I don't think our ministry knows exactly that connection with you. And so I think from what I have gotten from my CEO right now, she's very much interested in on this project.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps including her in the communication would be great.
Thank you very much. That's what that I was highlighting, that the connections that has been made through the REIN and through the support of Santiago and Francesco was really good to guarantee that we are contacting the right institution and the right person, so we can't miss these opportunities to have a more clear and direct conversations. It looks like Nicolas is having some issues with Teams, but I think he's already back. Okay.
Yes,
He's back.
Yes, he's back.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay. Thank
Stronger
you.
than ever.
Just maybe one quick word. The session is extending a little longer than anticipated. We have a couple more questions, but I just wanted to say that if anybody needs to leave the session, please make sure to leave your email in the chat so we can send you the recording and the minutes of the session.
No, I think
Yes,
we have another question from the floor.
Yes, we see Valerie Grant from OECS. You have your hand raised. Please go ahead, Valerie.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Mine is not a technical question. Mine is a question with regards to coordination. We've been in communication with the CopernicusLAC Chile, and we wondered what is the difference between the two organizations. Can you help us a little bit with that?
Absolutely. So we're sister centers. Let's say that the main goals are the same, bringing Copernicus to Latin America and the Caribbean. So that remains the same, whether it be in Chile or in Panama. And also it's worth highlighting that both centers are meant to support all of the region. So the center in Panama might be in Panama, but it is very much working with Chile, with Brazil, et cetera, and the center in Chile is also very much working with the Caribbean. The main differences are really with the focus. So we have more of a disaster risk reduction focus, understanding that disaster risk reduction has a lot of facets. So it has its economic facets. It has a very big environmental component. It has more of a social component as well. So we're focused more on that, whereas the center in Chile is more focused on land use, land cover applications, and coastal applications. That doesn't mean that we don't look at coasts. We're very much working on some coast use cases, but they have really that specific focus. The other difference that there is between us is the focus of our infrastructure. So the Chilean infrastructure is more focused on in situ data for the region. So being really a central hub for all the in situ data that you might need for your studies, for your reports, for anything that you might need. Whereas we're more on the computation side and we're more focused on hosting the services, which we mentioned before. So those are the main differences.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. So would it be fair then to say we can coordinate through whichever arm? It doesn't really matter?
Yeah, it really it's up to you. However, it depends on what you'd like to do. If you'd like something more related to disaster risk reduction, probably we're the better people. If you want something more specific for land use, probably our Chile colleagues are the better people to reach out to.
We'll reach out directly since some of our questions are more direct to us, so we'll reach out directly. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Thank you for the question.
Thanks a lot, Valerie and Nicolas. And we see another hand raised from David Farrell. Please go ahead, David.
Good afternoon. I don't know if everyone can hear me okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I'm David Farrell, the principal of the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology. So thanks a lot for the references to the CIMH with regards to support for the platform. Certainly we support the CopernicusLAC initiative. We have been using Copernicus products for quite some time as well. We've used Copernicus products for looking at sargassum. We've used Copernicus products for looking at landslides. We've used Copernicus products for looking at post-earthquake land deformation. We've used Copernicus products for oil spill detection and so on. So we've used Copernicus products for quite some time, and we've built some level of expertise in utilizing Copernicus products over that period of time. The conversation about wildfires came up, and we've also used Copernicus products for supporting with the GRC in terms of looking at the climatology of wildfires and so on across the region. And so we've integrated that within a climate services framework. And so one of the things that we are also looking at is certainly your air quality and integrating Copernicus services to support air quality observations across the regions, given the importance of air quality to human health. And certainly we have the Sahara dust outbreaks that we map, and which we think we can utilize Copernicus for looking at, and certainly using that same data set to look at aerosol optical depth, which will support the energy sector as well for people who are using photovoltaics and so on. So we see significant application of Copernicus outside of the disaster management field, but certainly covering a larger area, a larger set of initiatives that could support the economic development of the region. And so one of the things that we would also engage with CopernicusLAC more is really research, development, and innovation. And I think that came up somewhere along the way in the conversation, and certainly looking at the Copernicus data sets to support AI and machine learning algorithms that may support not just disaster management, but also other areas of decision making. One of the things that we would like to put on the table is that we could provide some technical competence with regards to supporting the Copernicus, the CopernicusLAC initiatives, since we have a significant amount of computational power at the CIMH, as well as data storage capability at the CIMH. And so rather than just being focused on developing tools and deploying tools, we could get more involved in acting as a mirror or acting as an incubator for some areas of research and development around the whole Copernicus platform, and offsetting that against other platforms that we've used as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the proposition. It's certainly something that sounds very interesting.
Can I ask Manos?
So in terms of computational power, obviously the more the merrier. I'd just like to mention very briefly on the issue of disaster risk reduction. Of course, there is much more that can be done with Copernicus. Really, disaster risk reduction is a key issue for Copernicus. I mean, as you can see that it's a key issue within the emergency service as well. However, we only have so much time and we'd only have so much power. And so we really had to pick one specific place where we needed to start so that the center towards the future can keep going forward. We also made this decision just because of well, I'm sure that you have heard of policy bandwidth. So bureaucracies around the world, bureaucratic organizations around the world can only follow so many topics at the same time. So if we focus on one and we have a clear message and we move forward with it, we have a very good option of really having an impact, really going forward with what we want, so that we may develop and go on to new fields, which are already being taken care of, as you mentioned already. Of course, the tracking of Saharan dust is a well-known application of Copernicus. But for the moment, we're focusing really on disaster risk reduction for this reason. And we look forward to, in the future, going on to other topics within the center. Health might be one, food security might be another. But your proposition is very much noted. We will discuss it with our colleagues at ESA as well, and at the INPA. And also mentioning innovation, just very quickly, we will be holding a hackathon in July. So this is really an absolutely terrific opportunity to showcase the capabilities of CIMH for creating an innovative solution that might go beyond what the center is doing at the moment. That's also another interesting thing of the hackathon. We really are not focusing just on disasters, but we're focusing on going perhaps a little bit broader, so that the creativity of the region can really be portrayed.
Thanks a lot, Nicolas. And we see another hand from Amrika. Please go ahead, Amrika.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to raise a couple of things based on the interventions I heard so far. One I think very early, I think in Francesco's statement, he mentioned loss and damage, and utilizing the tools with respect to helping us with assessing or planning for loss and damage. I was wondering because it speaks to UN Corporation, and I'm seeing a lot of UN entities represented here this afternoon. ECLAC, the sub-regional office in Trinidad and Tobago, plays an important part in loss and damage assessment post-disaster. So this is not broad loss and damage as envisaged under the Paris Agreement, but in post-disaster loss and damage. So I was wondering, and I now know that there's a Copernicus Center in Chile, and ECLAC headquarters is in Santiago. So I'm wondering if there is some sort of synergy between the work being done by Copernicus and what the work that ECLAC does in this region on assessment of loss and damage. That is one. The second intervention I would make is something that we've been grappling with in the region for a very long time. And that is, I mean, I note that we have initiatives that have been earmarked for, well, ongoing and earmarked for Belize, Guyana, and Jamaica to come on stream. But I am concerned about the our smaller member states. We have countries. Trinidad said it was small and it's over 5,000 kilometers. We have member states that are less than 500 square kilometers. And the issue of these tools and their applicability to small island developing states is an important question, and it is sort of the elephant in the room. So what I wanted to suggest is I note that there is a workshop coming up facilitated by CIMH in mid-May, and I would be interested to the outputs of that workshop. Any advice or any recommendations about SID-specific initiatives in line with the services being offered by Copernicus. And then as well, if part of the policy work we can do is have a targeted look at how these tools can be deployed in SIDS in particular. We're appreciative of there are lessons to be learned from the broader Latin America and the exciting work that's going on. But we have to, in these challenging times, and recognizing what Francesco said about being able to monitor environmental change and environmental degradation. The ability to do that in small island developing states using these technologies is very important to us. So I just wanted to leave that, for consideration. Thanks.
It is very much a relevant question. Thank you very much for it, Amrika. And for anyone who's following all the developments at the UN Committee for Peaceful Uses of Outer Space in the recent years, it is very much clear that small island nations need space. For the specific case of Copernicus, some of the tools really don't have a resolution that is small, let's say, sharp enough for some of the applications that are needed in these cases. But there's definitely things that we can do in terms of capacity building there. And again, things that can be done in terms of sargassum, for example. And I think David, I think that's a hand up, but that's actually a 2 fingers up. I know that David has quite a lot of expertise here. So please, if you have any comment, go on ahead.
Certainly. America, as a person who resides on a small SID myself, we have been using Copernicus products really to map small watersheds on SIDS or activities, changes in land use on SIDS. In fact, we've used Copernicus to look at displacements in St. Andrew in Barbados, which is a small part of the parish. So we can do quite a few things with the Copernicus products in small SIDS, and we've been doing that for some time on the different islands across the Eastern Caribbean. So, and I'm pretty certain that Valerie Grant can also probably weigh in on this as well from the OECS. And so there are some problems, obviously, that we probably can't work on, but most of the problems on small SIDS we can work on, and we have examples of having worked on many of the small islands in the Caribbean. So, but we can talk about this, Amrika, separately. Thanks.
No, just to say it wasn't an Amrika question. It was a regional, it was a regional question. So it's good to know that that work is going on. I think what we have to do is ensure that the applicability and those things are being fed into the spaces of the decision makers, and into the spaces of the persons who make the practitioners. So I have no doubt, but it's just the communication of the information. But thank you.
Absolutely. And just to comment on that, the training that will take place in Barbados will take into consideration these particularities very much. And also a follow-up to this training, and which is something that we don't usually do, but we'll do in this case, will be the creation of a post-event, of a post-training event in which we will talk more to the higher echelons of the hierarchies, so that they understand what new capabilities their colleagues have gained, and so that these capabilities can be used more thoroughly in their decision-making processes.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Nicolas, David, Amrika, for your insights. We are sorry that the session is extending so long, but we see another raised hand from Valerie. So if you agree, we can go ahead for a last question. Anything, we can continue the discussion through email or contacting you directly. So with that, Valerie, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I hate to be the one prolonging the session, but since David called me out, I decided. So I totally agree with Amrika and David. So the two things are not mutually separate, because I think that more attention definitely has to be paid to the small islands, but we are in fact doing some work. And I think it goes back to fitness for purpose in terms of it depends. It really depends on what kind of work we're doing at the time, and it's also and the circumstances that surrounds it. But what we have seen in general is that sometimes and too often the small islands get left behind. So it's something that we're passionate about. So we applaud the fact that you're taking this into consideration. It will be part of the work program. And so it leads me to the question, is there any kind of support for participants to be in those sessions? Because oftentimes that is also a barrier.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I don't know if Nicolas or Claudia, they want to come back to you with this comment.
Very briefly, there is some support being given in these cases for this training in particular. There is support that is being given in each of the trainings, actually, because we always aim to have international participants and also national participants for each of the locations that we go to. In this case, we're going to have only Caribbean participants. So we're not going to have anyone from South America or Central America. So it's really going to be focused on the region, because we realize exactly what you have mentioned. I mean, we really need to give quite a lot of attention to the Caribbean, and particularly to smaller islands. So, however, we're limited. Of course, we don't have endless funds, but we do as much as we can. And something else that is quite interesting in this sense is that the digital campus is there. It is freely accessible. Any of you can go. I know that someone dropped the link in the chat. I think it was maybe Santiago, and it's freely accessible. You can go in there, and as many people in your organization as you want can sign up and can take the courses. So that is there as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Nicolas. And with that, I think we can close here this session by thanking again CARICOM, the European Space Agency, Copernicus Hub, of course, and all the colleagues and member states that joined this meeting. This is very much important to UNEP. We are really committed to support the Caribbean. We do have this specific working group on the Caribbean, exactly because of the comments we just heard from the floor. And then Santiago will share with you the minutes and also the recording of this meeting. And should you think another session would be needed or will be useful to you, we can discuss this with Claudia and Nicolas, maybe on a specific topic that is particularly relevant for your country. Okay, with that, good evening to everyone, and thank you again for your participation and your attention.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, colleagues.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you all very much. Bye.
Thank you, America.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Salut.